How are we doing, Nick? NK Sports Podiatry here. So, recently had a comment by one of our viewers on YouTube about what we actually do orthoses wise or insole wise with regards to plantar plate injury. So, just to recap, plantar plate injury is this structure, plantar plate attaches from the metatarsal to the phalanx here. So, the key thing is to begin with, when we're looking at the prescription we use, is to make sure that when we have a cutout or a metatarsal dome, it goes just the metatarsal dome, so something like this, sits just behind the metatarsal head, and then say, for example, the cutout we use sits in front. So then what that encourages the toe to do is to drop down into that gap. If you put that cutout behind the metatarsal head, you actually encourage the toe to bend up, which obviously start increasing symptoms. So, things that we can try and do. We can look at a off-the-shelf product, something like orthotic. So, we would then use our Met Dome. Obviously, we'd find out where we need to place it. A great way of doing that is actually get a bit of paper, put in a patient's shoe, get them to stand on it with a bit of lipstick, and then you can get an imprint of where you need to stick it. So say we're dealing with something around the third MTPJ. Here, so metatarsal dome. So the metatarsal is roughly where my finger is. Then we use a extension that has a U cutout inside. Now, obviously this would have been ground down nice and smooth, but just for purpose of video. So something along the line of that. So then we're allowing the toe to drop down into that gap while pushing up and offloading the metatarsal head and the plantar plate. Now, with regards to orthoses, what you need to also consider is actually the type of product that you want to use. So if you want something that is a little more longer lasting, then you could move on to something like a plastic type shell, but you can still modify, but something like this will just last a bit longer, or then you can go for something fully bespoke. The key thing is when you're talking about orthoses is you need to take in the consideration of the patient's weight. If you get someone that's really, really heavy, they're just going to crush through something like this very, very quickly. So then when you're getting a custom device, you need to make sure that the shell thickness is taken into consideration to the patient's weight. You also need to think of the shoe that it's going into. Trying to fit something along the lines of this into a dress shoe is just not going to work. So the relationship between the shoe and the insole, they have to work together. Something else that we've been recently trying with in clinic is one way you offload the plantar plate is to help stiffen up the ball of the foot. So we tend to recommend people go into a rocker sole shoe or a stiff sole walking boot. However, we found this super light, super thin, very stiff carbon fiber insole that we've actually started sticking in patients' trainers. And if we look, it's actually got a slight forefoot rocker. So what we mean here, we can see the front is off the ground. So as you then come to propulse through, it can help just take the loading off the toe. So we're trialing with a few patients tonight where we get them to use this for sort of 6-8 weeks, and then the aim is to wean them off this completely. So just to recap, the key points is making sure that that metatarsal dome is just behind the metatarsal head, and then the sulci cutout sits in front of there, so you allow the toe to drop down into that gap. Be considerate of the shoe it's going into, and also the patient's weight. Any questions, any queries, pop them in the comments, let me know. See you all soon. Bye now.